Dr. Joe has a totally open ajna and a totally open throat, and that's why you see him using his brain, which is, the properties of the ajna, the third eye, so he can think about things in any way that he needs to, because he doesn't have a defined way of thinking about anything whatsoever. So he can be, that's why he's bridging science and mysticism. He is not limited to thinking about things in any certain way, shape, or form. Generators are a great place to start because 70% or more of the people in the world are generators. So just as it says they're open, anyone can get in and envelop like in an aura hug. So the way I like to explain this is their energy is expanding outward and they want to be enveloped in the experience of life. Yep, this is Teal Swan. Yeah, this is a reflector. Absolutely, completely undefined. You'll notice if you look at the the inner authority there, 4 down on the right, see where it says type strategy, not self-theme? No inner authority. There's no defined center. So there is nothing internal happening in the internal environment that says like yes, no, like, your average generator, 70% of the planet or more, they can literally ask their gut. And Teal is a profound astral projector. Very, very exceptional. And reflector is kind of resisting. A lot of people who are reflectors are definitely aliens, and they are generally projectors, and reflectors are definitely not from here. She comes over and, without going into all the details, very serenely walks me through a soul braid, which is basically a walk-in. The only difference is that it's the exact same thing, except for the current soul remains, and then the being that's coming in, which is generally extraterrestrial, in this case gets braided with the current soul that is in the human vessel. And so I was walked through a soul braid. The whole universe is a loving system, and you wouldn't be here to do something that you don't love at the end of the day. And anything outside of that would be some sort of programming or trauma, etc. So best way that I can explain that is, it was like releasing, if you're a glass, like this glass, okay? Yeah. And let's pretend like everything that was up here, like above the water, was just like soot, and we'll call that trauma. And it was like I had poured out a substantial amount of soot out of my glass, out of my vessel. And it was as if my higher self came in with this like pitcher, and it was, I get the same visual every time. It's like this golden source light that you would visualize if you ever tried to as a human visualize what source would look like. This like golden light kind of thing, and just poured right into my glass until it was as full as it could be. And then, with that happening, there was a part of me that was like, the soul contract, which means that it was probably going to happen because it was agreed upon before I came here, was like, if you get to this point and you go through this and you release that, then when you fill in with your higher self, then I'll come in as well. We'll braid and we'll create one new soul, essentially. So wow. Yeah, so very, very interesting experience. The most blissful experience I've ever had in my life by a long shot. So, wow. Like just the amount, there's nothing like, and this is just why I'm so gung-ho about people doing trauma healing work, there's nothing like pouring out pain and just feeling like your higher self just takes this golden light and just pours it into you, and you're just like, it is unbelievable. There's nothing like it. Wow. So, and your life really changed because of it. Like now you're building this village, right? It was like you saw a big shift, right? Like right away, right? Yeah, I think the biggest thing that it taught me was, it sounds so archaic, would that be the right word? Like where something's like so basic that it's like evasive almost. Which part is, what do you mean exactly? The number one thing I learned was that I am love, and that everybody is love, and that I didn't really have to try to do anything. I just needed to be love and do what I love, and that the control was already built into the flow of life. I didn't really have to control it anymore. And that was like the real beginning, because when that happened and you can feel that much love source coming into you at that once, that's a lot of energy. And it's like my perspective changed instantly. It was no longer, you know, all the years of my life leading up to that, it was, I have to try really hard to do this. And, you know, I was like super bulldozer, you know, like even if I didn't want to do it, I'd do it, just do it like almost like self-harm, to be honest. So, you know, having that perspective of being love just completely 180'd me, 100%. So.
Wow, interesting.
We'll get biblical just for a moment here, but ask and you shall receive is not a joke. Like, you know, if it's actually something that you want to know from like a loving place, you know, internally, you can ask and it will arrive like substantially fast. The issue is that, you know, we're programmed to think that we need and want certain things that we don't, that we ask for those things, and then we're all automatically in resistance vibrationally to receiving them because it's not what we really want. We just think we do because that's how we're raised, etc. So, I mean, all of this, you know, past life knowledge that I've had, you know, being like a dragon, an elephant, and an angel, and like an Lyran and a human, it's like all I did was ask, to be honest. Like, yeah, like the Lyran one really came in hard, of course, because that was, you know, during a huge trauma release. But I learned probably more about my past life as a Lyran, just being curious about it and asking questions and just being open in day-to-day life. So we are human, and that's what we are right now. And, you know, the number one reason that ETs don't show up on the White House door is because like that type of information wouldn't be received very well, you know? So it's important that it's received from humans, and that's why starseeds come and become humans and wake up as a human to then spread the information, you know, because it doesn't really matter that like if you're human or not. What matters is like the message you're bringing in, you know. So yeah, it is inspired as a past life of, I tend to go places and build a kingdom or a place where people can go and be home, you know, in the light and love, and they can discover themselves from their hearts from the inside out. And, you know, that's how I change the world. But there's a lot of people who do it very, very differently. Someone said, well, what are you going to build? Like an eco village, or like, you know, like domes or something, or like, what is it going to look like? And I was like, no, it's going to be a castle. And they look at me like, what? And they're like, a castle? And they're like, yeah, like an actual castle. What are you going to build it out of? I'm like, stone. And they're just like, they just give me this weird look, like, and they're like, so like an actual castle? And I was like, yes, like an actual archetypical like castle, like a kingdom, you know? And they're just like, well, like, don't you think, you know, the whole thing with, I don't do politics much. What was the guy's name that make fun of his hair? Trump.
Oh yeah.
The whole thing with the walls, you know? So they're all like, well, why walls? Like, you know, don't you think that it like, from the law of attraction perspective, you know, if you're building walls for protection, that you're going to like be inviting dangers, you know, or essentially are people to attack. And I was like, you know, if that was the purpose of the walls, maybe, but you know, you don't walk into your house and sit down with the family that you love dearly and say, wow, I sure wish these walls weren't here. Like, no, like those, you know, walls don't have one purpose. Like, that's a loving container where people are home. And that's important, you know, and that's why I wanted the archetypical castle, because, you know, you're like, you're welcome. There's plenty of land out there. You can walk outside, do whatever you need to do. You know, you know, you don't have, nobody's locked into anything. It's not a prison. It's a home. You know, the walls are there to be a loving container. And that's really, really important to me, you know, and I want to build the homes for people. I want them to be nice. You know, I want them to be, I want people to want to be there, you know, and I want people to have pride in where they're living, but like the right kind of pride, like a loving pride, you know, like they're like, wow, I love being here because I'm appreciated. And, you know, like what I love matters, and that is what matters. And that's, you know, if we all did what we loved, like the world would be a very different place at the end of the day. You know, as soon as I make someone an enemy, I'm creating, on a universal level, I'm creating separation from them when we are actually all one people at the end of the day. And we all are love. So I think it's important to know the difference between somebody who's doing something you don't prefer and what an enemy is. I would highly recommend everybody not have enemies, but just have preferences against what other parts of source are doing that are, at the end of the day, traumatized beings.
Yeah, hurt people hurt people.
You know, my dream is to walk up to whoever what we perceive as the deepest, darkest world leader and just show them love. At the end of the day, that's honestly, if there was a way that I could get there to meet the person or persons and just spread love with them, I think that would be the most impactful thing anybody could ever do, honestly. So
I think you already have.
Thank you for being with us.
I appreciate you very much. Thank you.